Welcome to the Pause for Science video presentation. Whether this is your first rocket or you've been building them for years, the Pause for Science video makes them easy to do. Let's have some fun.
Hi, I'm known as the Rocket Man, and it's one of my greatest pleasures to teach people how to build and launch model rockets. The rocket you're building today is from Estes, the world's leader in model rocketry.
Estes has a 40-year history of model rocketry safety.
The rocket you're building is the E2X. It's easy to build, but has all the components of a real model rocket. It actually uses solid fuel, similar to the ones that NASA flies. We're going to go through this with you step by step, and it's important that you stay with us. You're going to have a great time.
This set incorporates basic model rocketry techniques that will help you develop your own model building skills.
As you build your rocket, it's important to follow along on your instructions. We're going to read each instruction first and then go back and do the step after you're sure you understand. The first step is to make sure that you've got all of your parts before we get started. Open the bag carefully so that you can store the parts you're not using in the large bag. Don't open the small bags until you need to, so that you don't lose any of the smaller parts. The next thing we have to do is check the layout and make sure that you've got all of the parts that you need. We'll go through them one at a time. You should have a plastic fin unit, a blue engine mount tube, a metal engine hook, a black engine holder ring, and a green ring adapter. A white body tube, and a launch lug that looks like a plastic straw. Shock cord, this is elastic and stretches. A nose cone, and a pre-tied parachute. The directions mention tape rings and a shroud line. They're already included. Also included in the kit is a set of decals. These are peel and stick and easy to use, but the most fun of the E2X is decorating it yourself. You'll also find a small pamphlet which contains your Estes warranty and the very important NAR, National Association of Rocketry, safety code. This safety code is what has kept model rocketry as safe as it has been for the past 40 years. It's important to refer to these, and we'll hit the highlights as we go through the construction today. For construction supplies, you're going to need a pencil, a sharp knife. Be careful with this one. Make sure your instructor knows where it is and who's using it. White or yellow glue. School glue works just great. There's a ruler located on the inside of the fold of pages 2 and 3 of your instructions. Scissors. And an emery board works great if you need to sand any parts. You may or may not need any sandpaper for this particular model. Also, I find it works a lot better if you use a bottle cap as a glue pot and put the glue into that to get started rather than using it directly from the tube. Now, let's get started building our rocket.
For this step, you will need the light blue engine mount tube, the metal engine hook, and the black engine holder ring. Make sure you put all the other parts that you're not going to be using back in your plastic bag so you don't lose them.
Locate the ruler printed in the center crease of the instruction sheet. We're going to use the metric side, but feel free to use the English measurement. The instruction sheet has both. Lay one end of the engine mount tube on the 0 mark of the ruler, whichever one you choose, and then place a mark on the engine mount tube at 25 millimeters, or 1 inch from 0, and make another mark at 64 millimeters, or 2.5 inches from 0. This second mark, as you can see on the video, comes very close to the end of the blue tube. Please take a moment to double check your measurements here. These are very important. This tube holds the engine which will provide the thrust for your rocket, so placement is important.
Next, you need a sharp blade or razor. Please make sure you get your instructor's help for this step.
We're on step E. Cut a very short 3mm or 1/8 inch long slit parallel to the end of the engine tube. Make this slit at the 64mm or 2.5 inch mark right near the end of the engine tube. Be careful not to crush the engine tube as you do this. It may take you a couple of times. The purpose for this slit is to hold the engine hook, so it only needs to be wide enough to do that. Step F. Carefully insert the engine hook into the slit that you just created. Look at the diagram and watch the video before you try to do it. Remember, it's important that you don't crush the blue tube while doing this. If you do, be careful to round it back into shape as well as possible with your fingers. Perfect. When modeling, it's important to do a test fit before you apply any glue. So let's do that now in step G. Test fit the black engine holder ring by sliding it onto the front of the engine tube. Slide the ring over the tube and the metal engine hook and up to the 25mm 1 inch mark that you made in step D. If it doesn't fit easily, you might have to fold in a little bit on the top of the blue engine tube.
Now that you know it fits, slide the ring back off again and we'll apply the glue.
Apply a ring of glue around the blue engine mount tube about 3mm or 1/8 of an inch ahead of the 1 inch mark or the 25mm mark. Do it as you see in the video. Now take a look at step H on page 2 of the instructions. Make the ring all the way around, and it's fine to put glue on the metal engine hook. Now slide the black engine holder ring onto the blue mount tube up to that 1 inch 25mm mark that you made and no further. So slide it right into place and keep it moving. Now set this assembly aside to dry. Step 2. Shock cord mount assembly. Locate the shock cord mount on the bottom of page 5 in the pattern section. It's easiest if you cut out that whole section first and then cut out the pattern. Carefully cut out your shock cord mount along the solid black outlines. Do not cut on the dotted lines. We'll be folding on these later. This is an important part of your rocket as it holds your parachute to the rocket for a safe recovery. Take your time here and make these creases as neat as possible. Fold on the dotted lines the number 1 section toward 2 and the number 3 section also up toward 2. Use a fingernail or the edge of your paper to smooth out those creases. And then open the paper back up again. You'll need your shock cord and some more glue for this step. Put the shock cord mount upside down facing you on the table. That is with the numbers and the Estes logo upside down, with the 3 facing you. Put a fairly large amount of glue onto the section labeled 2. Once again, you're going to need to make sure that this is good and strong. This is the part that holds your rocket to its parachute. Now lay the shock cord on a slight angle into the glue, with the end in the glue, and stretching it out across section 3. Now fold section 1 down. This should effectively trap the shock cord between section 1 and 2. Now apply glue. I find it's easier to apply glue to the back of section 1 that you just glued down. And then fold once again section 3 up over the folded section. This should trap the shock cord inside the mount for a safe fit. Squeeze it carefully between your fingers, and if you've done it properly, you should see the imprint of the shock cord mount making its way through the paper. Let me tell you, if you don't get any glue on your fingers in this step, you didn't use enough glue.
The shock cord should extend out of the top of the mount. Locate the slot on the inside of the fin assembly. The metal engine hook will need to fit through this slot.
Slide the total assembly from step 1 into the plastic fin from the rear. Make sure it lines up. You probably have to wiggle it a little bit to get into place. And once it is, slide it through. It should come all the way through with just the metal engine hook sticking out of the back. If there's still some of the blue tube hanging out the back, that's just fine. Next, you need to fit the green ring over the blue engine mount tube. Test fit it first. If it's really difficult to put on, you can gently crimp the top of the blue tube, or reach inside the green ring and peel just one strip of paper out of the inside. This should give you a nice, easy fit. Remember to peel just one layer. If it starts to peel too much, cut it free with scissors or the blade. With that done, the green ring should fit over the blue engine mount tube. Be careful not to knock it out of place as you slide it down all the way to the plastic fin. Great. Now we need to slide it off and apply the glue.
Approximately 10 millimeters or 3/8 of an inch ahead of the fin unit, apply a ring of glue around the engine tube as shown. This is about halfway between the fin unit and the end of the engine tube.
You're going to want to use a good amount of glue here. After all, it has to hold a rocket together. Now carefully slide the green ring over the engine mount. Remember, hold the engine mount in from the back so it doesn't slide out of place. And once you get it going, slide it on swiftly and smoothly all the way up to the plastic ring. Don't stop too long or it's likely to jam in place. Once you get it together, give it a push from either end to make sure everything's in place. Remember, be careful not to damage the blue engine mount tube. It's not a bad idea to take a look at it now and make sure it stayed round. If it didn't, you can round it out with your finger now. Now let's set this aside to dry. Fin attachment. Using a door frame, or in our case the corner of a cabinet, as a guide, lightly draw a straight line along the entire length of the body tube. You do this by holding the pencil flat against the wall of the door frame and just gently drag it down. The mark doesn't have to be too dark. It's to give you a guideline.
Remember, be careful not to leave any marks on doors, frames, or walls. That looks good.
There are two measurements that you need to make and mark along that straight line we just created. One is in step 4 and the other in step 5. I prefer to do them all at once.
Now, using the metric side of the ruler, or English if you prefer, mark the body tube at 13 millimeters or 1/2 inch from the end.
Make the second mark at 25 millimeters or 1 inch. It helps if you pre-mark your ruler, then you know you're at the right spot. Take a moment to double check, as these measurements are fairly important. Once again, it's time for a test fit. We're on step 4, fin attachment.
The glue may still be tacky, and you don't want the body to stick in place here, so be careful as you work.
Slide the body tube over the green engine mount, and it should come all the way down to the plastic fins themselves. Perfect. Okay, now slide it back off again. We'll apply some glue. Apply glue inside the end of the body tube at that 13 millimeter, the first mark that we made, 1/2 inch from the end of the opening. Remember, we're applying the glue on the inside.
Use a good ring of glue here. After all, you're holding a rocket together.
I'm also going to suggest 2 changes from the directions here. For extra strength and stability, I also put a ring of glue around the plastic lip just above the fins on your fin assembly. It can't hurt to have just a little bit of extra grip. After all, this rocket will soar hundreds of feet into the air. Okay, here's where you have to be careful. Once you slide it on, keep that body tube moving until it's in place, and then it's a good idea to give it a little twist. Now here's the second part that I make a different suggestion than the directions. That line that we made along the side of the body tube, make sure that it does not line up with any of the fins, and I prefer to not line it up with the engine hook. If it's lined up with the engine hook, you're likely to have some interference with the launch rod on takeoff. Make sure everything's in place, and let's set this aside to dry. Step 5, launch lug attachment. Here's where we're going to use that little piece that looks like a drinking straw. It's a really important part. This is the guidance system for your rocket. So let's pay close attention and keep it as straight as you possibly can. We've already done the measurement in step A, so let's go to step B. Apply glue to the launch lug itself. Run the glue along the length of the launch lug, being careful not to fill the hole in the straw with glue. Now, place the launch lug on that straight line we made using the edge of the door or the corner of the door frame. Place the end of the launch lug at the 1 inch or 25 millimeter mark that you made. This is the furthest of the 2 marks from the fin assembly. Push it into place and hold for a few seconds until it dries. Next, sight along the body tube and the launch lug to make sure they line up and they're straight. Sometimes it helps to look across the room at a clock or a spot on the wall. If they're as straight as you can get them, now we just need to reinforce that setting.
Because of the importance of this part, we're going to reinforce it with some glue down the side. These are called glue fillets. Apply a drop of glue and smooth it down the side where the launch lug meets the body tube.
Once you've got the glue all the way down the side, you're going to take your finger and smooth it out. Great. Now we'll do the other side the same way. Make sure you don't get any glue into the opening of the straw. If you do, use a toothpick or a rolled up piece of paper to remove the glue before it dries. Step 6. Shock cord mount attachment. The shock cord mount holds the parachute to your rocket, so this is an important part to consider. One more measurement to do here. Approximately 25 millimeters or 1 inch from the open end or the front end of the body tube, make a mark. The purpose of that mark is to give us a guide. It's important to insert the shock cord mount in past that 1 inch mark that we just made. Now apply a good amount of glue. If you don't get glue on your fingers on this step, you're not using enough glue. On top of the shock cord mount that we assembled in an earlier step. Take a look at the picture B and C on step 6 and watch the video to see how this goes. Once you have enough glue on there, keep the shock cord mount curled over your finger so that you can easily insert it into the open end of the rocket body. Reach in past that 1 inch line, a good finger length is fine, and squeeze the mount up against the side of the body tube. Hold it there for a few seconds.
This mount holds the body of the rocket to the nose cone and the parachute. It has to withstand the explosive charge of ejection.
Make sure you squeeze it tightly up against the inside of the body and smooth it out as much as you possibly can. Now it's best to double check this one. This connection has to take a lot of force. When the secondary explosion comes, to deploy your parachute and nose cone. Your parachute's already assembled, so you don't need step 7. In step 8, we're going to be attaching the parachute to the nose cone. You may still have some plastic flashing filling in the hole that we need to open to tie the parachute to. Usually a pen point or a blunt pair of scissors will be enough to push this out.
If the flashing does not come out easily, remember, set the nose cone down and work toward the table. Never cut toward yourself.
Step 8. Parachute and shock cord attachment to nose cone. You need to make sure that you have 3 separate loops of shroud lines from your parachute. Hold them so that they're all about equal, and then gather them together and thread the shroud lines through the eyelet that we just created in the nose cone. Open the loops back up and fly the nose cone through them. Sound effects always help. Pull it tight and you have effectively tied your parachute to your nose cone. If you did it right, all the shroud lines will be of equal length. We'll test that later.
Now tie the loose end of the shock cord to the eyelet in the nose cone.
Tie it with a double knot. Pull it nice and tight. Double check the knot, make sure it's good and tight, and then it's a good idea to cut off any extra that you have. You want to make sure that you tie this right at the end of that shock cord.
Whether you use the decals provided, paints, markers, or decoupage your rocket, This is your chance to make it your own.
After the glue is dried on your rocket, it's time to pack the parachute and get ready for launch.
Next, you'll need some squares of flame-proof recovery wadding. It's very important to use flame-proof wadding and not tissue paper or paper towels.
You need to use 3 or 4 sheets of wadding, crumple them up very loosely, one at a time, and insert them into the open end of the body tube, where the parachute's going to go. Insert them one at a time and just slide them gently down with a finger.
The purpose of this wadding is to stop the sparks and flame from the ejection charge from reaching your parachute. So they're fairly important.
Remember, pack them in loosely, one at a time. Just like with recreational parachuting, everybody has to pack their own parachute.
Lift the parachute up so that the nose cone clears the table. This will help straighten the shroud lines. Then blouse out the parachute to make sure that it's not going to stick together.
The best way to do this is to put both of your hands up underneath and hold the parachute open. If the shroud lines are about equal here, they don't have to be perfect. But as long as there's not one noticeably shorter than the others, we're all set to go. So it's time to spike, fold, and roll your parachute. Spike it by pinching the center of the blue dot at the top and pull the sides together. Then fold it down from the top to about halfway. And then roll in from both sides. Once that is done, you can roll the shroud lines gently and loosely around the parachute.
Now that the parachute has been folded and the shroud lines wrapped around it, you can carefully pack the parachute into the open end of the body tube.
Push the shock cord in behind it. And insert the nose cone. Hey, that really looks like a rocket now.
Decals and decorations will really personalize your rocket and make it look more realistic.